Wild animals behave differently when treated with love. They know who their well-wishers are, and may even repay them for the service they provide. Animals can sense an amazing amount of things above and beyond that. A few examples. Animals can tell if you're hungry, sad, drunk, or content. Animals can tell if you have a disease, an illness, or cancer. Animals can sense your thoughts, mood, and actions by merely your tone of voice. Animals can feel the slightest mannerisms and know your next move. Animals can sense if there's dangers in the air, or if there is danger. You get the idea. One spring morning many years ago, a man who had been prospecting for gold along Coho Creek on southeastern Alaska's Kupreanof Island emerged from a spruce and hemlock forest. He froze in his tracks. No more than 20 paces away, in the bog, was a huge Alaskan timber wolf caught in one of Trapper George's traps. Old George had died the previous week of a heart attack, so the wolf was lucky the man had happened along. Confused and frightened at the man's approach, the wolf backed away, straining at the trap chain. Then the man noticed something else. It was female, and her teats were full of milk. Somewhere there was a den of hungry pups waiting for their mother. From her appearance, the man guessed that she'd been trapped for only a few days. That meant her pups were probably still alive, surely no more than a few miles away. But the man suspected that if he tried to release the wolf, she would turn aggressive and turn to tear him to pieces. The man decided to search for her pups instead, and began to look for incoming tracks that might lead him to her den. Fortunately, there were still a few remaining patches of snow. After several moments, the man spotted paw marks on a trail skirting the bog. The tracks led a half-mile through the forest, then up a rock-strewn slope. He finally spotted the den at the base of an enormous spruce. There wasn't a sound inside. Wolf pups are shy and cautious, and he didn't have much hope of luring them outside, but he had to try. So he began imitating the high-pitched squeak of a mother wolf calling her young. No response. A few moments later, he tried another call. 4 tiny pups appeared. They couldn't have been more than a few weeks old. He extended his hands, and they tentatively suckled at his fingers. Perhaps hunger had overcome their natural fear. Then, one by one, the man placed them in a burlap bag and headed back down the slope. When the mother wolf spotted the man, she stood erect, possibly picking up the scent of her young. She let out a high-pitched, plaintive whine. The man released the pups, and they raced to her. Within seconds, they were slurping at her belly. What next? The man wondered. The mother wolf was clearly suffering. Yet each time the man moved in her direction, a menacing growl rumbled in her throat. With her young to protect, she was becoming belligerent. She needs nourishment, the man thought. I have to find her something to eat. The man hiked toward Coho Creek and spotted the leg of a dead deer sticking out of a snowbank. He cut off a hindquarter, then returned the remains to nature's icebox. Toting the venison haunch back to the wolf, he whispered in a soothing tone, Okay, Mother, your dinner's served, but only if you stop growling at me. Come on now, easy. The man tossed chunks of venison in her direction. She sniffed them, then gobbled them up. Cutting hemlock boughs, the man fashioned a rough shelter for himself and was soon asleep nearby. At dawn, he was awakened by 4 fluffy bundles of fur sniffing at his face and hands. He glanced towards the agitated mother wolf. If only I could win her confidence, he thought. It was her only hope. Over the next few days, the man divided his time between prospecting and trying to win the wolf's trust. He talked gently to her, threw her more venison, and played with the pups. Little by little, he kept edging closer, though he was careful to remain beyond the length of the chain. The big animal never took her dark eyes off him. Come on, Mother, he pleaded. You want to go back to your friends on the mountain. Relax. At dusk on the 5th day, he delivered her daily portion of venison. Here's dinner, he said softly as he approached. Come on, girl, nothing to be afraid of. Suddenly, the pups came bounding to the man. Well, at least he had their trust, but he was beginning to lose hope of ever winning over the mother. Then, he thought he saw a slight wagging of her tail. He moved within the length of her chain. She remained motionless. The man sat down 8 feet from her with his heart in his mouth. One snap of her vast jaws and she could break his arm or neck. He wrapped his blanket around himself and slowly settled onto the cold ground. It was a long time before he fell asleep. He awoke at dawn, stirred by the sound of pups nursing. Gently, he leaned over and petted them. The mother wolf stiffened. "Good morning, friends," he said tentatively, then slowly placed his hand on the wolf's injured leg. She flinched, but made no threatening move. "This can't be happening," the man thought to himself. Yet it was. He could see that the trapped steel jaws had imprisoned only 2 toes. They were swollen and lacerated, but she wouldn't lose the paw if he could free her. "Okay," the man said, "just a little longer and we'll have you out of there." He applied pressure. The trap sprang open and the wolf pulled through. Whimpering, she loped about, favoring the injured paw. The man's experience in the wild suggested that the wolf would now gather her pups and vanish into the woods. But cautiously, she crept toward the man. The pups nipped playfully at their mother as she stopped at the man's elbow. Slowly, she sniffed his hands and arms. Then, the wolf began licking his fingers. He was astonished. This went against everything he'd ever heard about timber wolves. Yet, strangely, it all seemed so natural. After a while, with her pups scurrying around her, the mother wolf was ready to leave and began to limp off toward the forest. Then, she turned back to the man. "You want me to come with you, girl?" he asked, curious. He packed his gear and set off. Following Coho Creek for a few miles, they ascended Cooper off the mountain until they reached an alpine meadow. There, lurking in the forested perimeter, was a wolf pack. The man counted 9 adults, and, judging by their playful antics, 4 nearly full-grown pups. After a few minutes of greeting, the pack broke into howling. It was an eerie sound, ranging from low wails to high-pitched yodeling. At dark, the man set up camp. By the light of his fire and a glistening moon, he could see furtive wolf shapes dodging in and out of the shadows, eyes shining. The man had no fear. They were merely curious, and so was he. The man woke. At first sight, it was time to leave the wolf to her pack. She watched as he assembled his gear and started walking across the meadow. Reaching the far side, the man looked back. The mother and her pups were sitting where he had left them, watching him. He waved to them, and at the same time, the mother wolf sent a long, mournful howl into the crisp air. 4 years later, after serving in World War II, the man returned to Coho Creek. It was the fall of 1945. After the horrors of the war, it was good to be back among the tall spruce and breathing the familiar, bracing air of the Alaskan bush. Then, he saw, hanging in the red cedar where he had placed it 4 years ago, the now rusted steel trap that had ensnared the mother wolf. The sight of it gave him a strange feeling. And something made him climb Kupranoff Mountain to the meadow where he'd last seen her. There, standing on a lofty edge, the man gave out a long, low wolf call, something he'd done many times before. An echo came back across the distance. Again he called, and again the echo reverberated. This time followed by a wolf call from a ridge about a half a mile away. Then, far off, the man saw a dark shape moving slowly in his direction. As it crossed the meadow, he could see it was a timber wolf. A chill spread throughout his whole body. He knew it at once, that familiar shape, even after 4 years. "Hello, old girl," he called gently. The wolf edged closer, ears erect, body tense, and stopped a few yards off. Her bushy tail wagged slightly. Moments later, the wolf was gone. The man left Kupranoff Island a short time after that, and he never saw the animal again. But the memory she left with him, vivid, haunting, and a little eerie, will always be there. A reminder that there are things in nature that exist outside the laws of understanding of man. During that brief instant in time, this injured animal and the man had somehow penetrated each other's worlds, bridging barriers that were never meant to be bridged. There is no explaining experiences like this. We can only accept them. And because they're tinged with an air of mystery and strangeness, perhaps treasure them all the more. To an animal, a good person is one that poses no immediate danger, especially one that provides food. Just observe a shy cat in action. It goes up to its familiar owners without hesitation, purring and rubbing itself against the owner's ankles. It runs away from strangers and hides. It knows immediately and instinctively which is which. It will accept gentle